Let me tell you something. When we all heard the squeal of a car's brakes outside, Joey and I ran over to the bedroom window that looked out to the street. The brown bomber had just parked in front of the house. Joey started blubbering. Byron's legs dangled faster and faster. Dad got out of the brown bomber. I pretended I was holding a bugle and started playing that "Day is Done" song that they play at funerals. Byron, why won't you behave? Why won't you think about what's going to happen to you when you do something wrong? Why do you always do stuff to get people mad at you? Joey asked. Why don't you make a break for it, 541? I asked. We listened to the noises of Dad coming home from work, the clump clump of his boots coming off and being dropped in the closet by the front door, the whoosh his chair made when he sat in it. Dad saying, "Woo, sure is good to be home." The second whoosh of the chair when Mama sat in his lap, and the sounds of kisses and giggles and laughs, then the words we waited for from Dad. "So what's new on the home front, Mrs. Watson?" "Oh, not much. There is a surprise that one of your little darlings has for you, though." "Good or bad?" Well, I guess that depends on your point of view." "Let me guess. Which one of the crumb crushers is going to surprise Big Daddy today?" "Your first one." "Oh, Lord, what'd he do? How serious this time?" "It can't be too bad. You seem pretty calm." "Well, let's just say I'm numb." "That bad?" "It depends. If you were happy with your son the way he was, this might be pretty bad. However, if you've always wanted a child from the south of the border, you might be happy with the new young Mr. Watson." Okay, what's up?" "Let me put it this way. Do you remember the line Big Daddy used to give every girl at Central High School?" Can't say I do." It goes like this. "I can show you better than I can tell you." Ring any bells?" "Oh, yeah, that does seem kind of familiar." "Well, now's as good as any time as any. Show me." "All right, you asked for it. Byron, dear, could you please come down here for a minute?" Mama didn't even raise her voice. She knew we'd been listening to everything they were saying. Byron took a deep breath, then jumped off the top bunk and started down the stairs. I followed right behind him, pretending I was a reporter. I shoved an imaginary microphone in his face. "Any famous last words, 541? Anything to say to all the little chihuahuas before they start coming out of the woodwork? Do you think the governor might call before they pull the switch? Are you going to come clean and tell what led you down the road to crime?" Bai figured he didn't have anything to lose, so when we got about halfway down the steps, he popped me square in the ear. Hard. Getting hit when you're not expecting it can really shake you up. My legs started wobbling like my knees were made out of jello. My eyes started leaking water. My nose started running. I tried to go tell on Bai, but all I could do was wait on the next to the last step and hold my ear as tears jumped out of my eyes. My throat wouldn't quit jerking up and down and making weird noises. Joey sat on the step next to me with tears jumping out of her eyes, too. When Byron walked into the living room, Mama said, "Mr. Watson, I'd like to introduce you to your long-lost son from Mexico City, Senor Byroncito Watson." Joey made me quit sobbing so he could see what Dad was going to do. But for the longest time, there were no sounds from the living room. We looked at each other. Finally, the chair whooshed as Mama got off of Dad's lap, then whooshed again as Dad stood up. After a long time, Dad said, "Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh." Then, "Well, son, what can I say? It's pretty much permanent, isn't it?" Dad's voice was real calm, and that was scarier than if he'd been yelling. "Yes, Dad." "Yes, Dad. So there's really nothing I can do, is there?" "I don't think so, Dad." "You don't think so, Dad? Well, judging by the condition of your hair, I wouldn't say thinking is one of your strong suits, is it?" Byron mumbled something. Wow, he must have really felt like he didn't have anything to lose, because Mama and Dad just didn't tolerate mumbling. Dad's voice shifted. Excuse me? I said, No, Dad. No, Dad. Joey started boo-hooing again. Whenever Dad repeated everything he said like this, some real big trouble was about to follow. Maybe there is something that can be done about this after all. Suddenly, Dad and Byron were in the doorway leading upstairs. Dad looked surprised to see me and Joey sitting there. He smiled at us. Hi, Kenneth. Hi, Pumpkin. Why are you two crying? I could just point at my ear, but Joey said, Oh, Daddy, please, what are you going to do? Don't worry, Joe. Everything's okay. You just wait down here. Dad and Byron disappeared into the bathroom, and the door locked behind them. Dad hadn't told me to wait downstairs, so I ran up and stood at the bathroom door, peeking through the keyhole. Someone had stuffed some toilet paper in the hole, though, so I had to drop to the floor and peek under the doorway to see what was going on. From the way Dad and Bai's feet were standing, I could tell that Bai was sitting on the toilet and Dad was standing at the sink. Dad was rumbling around in the medicine cabinet. I could hear Bai sniff a couple of times, then Dad started whistling that stupid song, Straighten up and fly right. Dad's feet took the 2 steps from the sink to the toilet. Byron said, Oh, man! I heard a choo-choo chicka sound, and the floor around their feet started being covered with stiff, reddish-brown Mexican-style hair. Dad kept whistling and cutting. Oh, man! Hold your head still. I'd hate to take off one of these ears off by mistake. Dad went on whistling. Oh, man! Kenneth, what are you doing? Mama called me from downstairs. I ran from the door and got halfway down the steps before I said, Nothing, Mama. Come on down here and do nothing. Yes, Mama. What's your father doing? He's whistling Straighten Up, Fly Right and cutting off all of Byron's hair. Mama laughed. Joey sat next to her, still looking worried. The 3 of us sat on the couch for about a half an hour before we heard Bai scream as loud as he could. Dad hollered down to us, Just a little aftershave! We heard the bathroom door open. Dad came down the steps first. Mrs. Watson, he said, I'd like to introduce you to your long-lost son from Siam, His Royal Highness, Yo Watson. Byron stepped into the living room with a real mean scowl on his face. Not only had Dad cut all of Byron's hair off, he'd also shaved his head. Bai's head was so shiny it looked like it was wet. And Mrs. Watson, Dad said, you can't possibly deny this is your child. You can tell this boy has got a ton of sans blood in him. Look at those ears. Poor Byron. If he'd have known how far his ears stuck out to the side, I bet he never would have gotten that butter. Mama put her hand over her mouth and said, Lord, don't blame that on my side of the family. Someone switched this child at the hospital. Joey laughed because she was relieved Byron hadn't been executed. Mama and Dad laughed at Byron's ears, but none of them laughed as hard as me. Go get the broom and dustpan and sweep up that garbage in the bathroom up. Then go stay in your room. This is it, Bai. You're old enough now and you've been told enough. This time something's going to be done. Now beat it. Dad's forehead was all wrinkled when he said this. They sent me and Joey outside so that they could have one of those adult-only talks. When me and Joey drifted back into the house after what seemed enough time for them to talk, Dad was on the telephone. He was holding the receiver away from his ear and making a funny face. I could hear someone yelling from the phone. Dad whispered to Mama, Why does she think she's got to yell into the phone for a long-distance call? Mama slapped his arm and whispered back, You leave my mama alone. They were talking to Grandma Sands, all the way in Alabama. Me and Joey crowded up next to them on the couch and heard Grandma Sands yell, This is costing y'all a fortune, Daniel. Let me talk to my baby again. Dad handed the phone back to Mama, then dug his finger around in his ear like he was going deaf. Mama gave Dad a dirty look and said, Okay, Mama, we'll be back with you. We love you. Bye-bye. She said this stuff Southern style. And that was it. We thought that was the end of Byron's latest adventure until a week later when Dad brought home the TTAB 700 in the brown bomber.